What's up, Flaniverse? We are here ready for week 4, Thursday night football. This is the Seahawks at the Cardinals. Should be a fun slate. A lot of moving parts, a lot of players that are out, changing situations that are a little bit up in the air. We just got Michael Carter called up from the practice squad for the Cardinals, makes that running back room a little bit murkier. A lot of moving parts here with James Conner out for the game. We got the news that Will Johnson is out as well, cornerback for the Cardinals. He was doubtful already, but makes things look a little bit better for the Seahawks receivers. Should be a fun slate. Zach Charbonnet is playing. That's all the big news off the top of my head from the inactives that we did not have as of this morning. Should be a fun one. Should be a fun game. But I'm going to be going position by position as usual. Quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, defense, kickers. In the end, I will make some lineups and I will take any questions you have. Also on this show, I did reach 5,000 subscribers last weekend, and I'm very grateful to you all. So I'm going to be doing a giveaway of 10 memberships to the channel. So there's most of you might not even know that you have the option of being a member of the channel for $5 a month. I have not done a ton with that. It's mostly just people showing their appreciation. At this point, I've only put one piece of content behind that paywall. It gives you some access to different channels in the Discord and stuff. But I'm hoping to put up a little bit more content behind the paywall going forward, in addition to the content that I'm already putting out there. And the first thing that I'm also going to be doing is doing a hat giveaway to members of the channel. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing a random drawing for 5 members of the channel tomorrow to get hats. So tonight, giving away memberships to the channel so you can get behind the paywall, get into the private Discord channels and stuff. And then tomorrow I'll be doing a hat giveaway among the members of the channel, not to all of them, but a hat giveaway. Have to figure out how to do it, a random drawing for 5 members of the channel. But tonight I'll be doing a random drawing to get more people into the membership pool. All right. Before we get into it, Kieran, if you win one, I will send one to Australia for you. All right, let's get into it. Starting with the quarterbacks. By the way, while you're coming in, if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. Again, if you're not already subscribed, very much appreciate it. Did get to 5,000, but the goal is 6,000 by the end of this NFL season. Have a ways to go to get there. All right, quarterbacks. We will start with Sam Darnold, projected for 48% flex ownership, 7% captain ownership. He is 10,000, 15,000 at captain. Feels a bit expensive. I have no real issue with the Darnold ownership. This is one where if I get to where the field's at, I think I'm fine with that with Darnold. But I think he's not a huge priority for me. So if I need to sacrifice some Darnold to get to players I like better, I'm willing to come in under the field there. I anticipate I'll be somewhat under the field at captain. It's a spot where, they haven't really thrown a ton so far this year. Maybe in the right situations, they will start throwing a little bit more. So far on the season, they rank 30th in pass rate over expectation. So they're just not throwing it much at all. Again, that's 3rd worst in the league in terms of pass rate over expectation. Cardinals defense is fine, ranked 15th in. They've allowed the 15th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to quarterbacks so far. So it's a fine matchup for quarterbacks and better for quarterbacks through the air than on the ground so far this year. So that's better for Darnold, who doesn't really run at all. So again, Darnold, not a huge priority for me. He'll get into a fair number of my lineups, but I wouldn't mind coming in a little bit under the field there. We'll kind of just see how the numbers come out as I try to prioritize some other players there. If I play Darnold, I'm always stacking him up. If I have him in the captain spot, I want him to be stacked up with at least 2 pass catchers in the flex. Darnold, single-digit rushing yards per game, just not much of a rusher at all. So the only way he becomes the optimal captain, other than like a fluky rushing touchdown or something, usually it's going to be he's throwing multiple touchdowns, throwing for a lot of yards. If he's too concentrated on one receiver, that receiver is likely to outscore him and be the optimal captain. So if I have Darnold at captain, I want him to be spreading the ball around quite a bit. So I want to have multiple pass catchers in the flex. All right, let's move on. And Carlos asked, that's a good question, says, let's go. How do we enter to win? All you need to do is make sure you have the option turned on to received gift memberships in chat. You could also, if you wanted to, you could just sign up for $5. But to win the contest today, where I'm giving away 10 memberships, all you need to do is make sure that you have the option on so that you can receive gift memberships. You could Google how to do that. I can't tell you how to do it. I did it a long time ago, but I think that is something that some people will have off. So you want to make sure that you have the ability to actually receive gifts when somebody gifts out memberships here. Blazing Blades, man, I was so close to winning a bunch of money on Monday. So actually back-to-back slates where I, with under 3 minutes left, was winning a lot of money. And then actually I made money on both of the past 2 slates. On Monday, after the Justice Hill catch with 40 seconds left, I was in first place in a $5 or $10 entry contest. So I was winning $6,000. So nothing huge, but I was winning one of the contests. But I was fading both Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman for the final 40 seconds of the game. If they did anything, I was going to lose it. And the first catch goes to Rashad Bateman, and then Andrews scored a touchdown. So I did end up making a couple $100, but could have been so much more on Monday. All right. Kyler looks good here. 10,800 price tag, 53% projected ownership at flex, 16% at captain. Kyler, to me, a bigger priority than Sam Darnold. Kyler does run a bit, only 30 some rushing yards per game, but also just has spike weeks in terms of rushing. Last year, he had 3 different times ran for 60 plus yards and a touchdown. So he clearly has the ability to just put up a huge score on the ground. It's also a better, they pass more. They rank 4th in terms of pass rate over expectation. Seahawks defense, not the best matchup. They have allowed the 6th fewest schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. So from that standpoint, not ideal. It's especially bad for quarterbacks through the air. They've been given up a little bit more on the ground than average, but not a great metric for Kyler. Certainly a tough matchup against this Seattle defense. I think that was the expectation coming in. I am buying into it being a tough one. But with that said, I think Kyler's rushing up, his rushing ability brings up the floor. The assumption that he's going to rush for, he usually rushes for, 30 some yards on average. He can have some spike weeks. I think in a tougher matchup, he's maybe a little bit more likely to run a little bit more. So I think the upside is there, and the floor is also higher for Kyler than it is for Sam Darnold. So ultimately, I think I'm going to get to more Kyler than Sam Darnold. But maybe, I mean, these numbers are high enough that I could see myself getting a little bit lower here. There are other pay up options that I'm really going to prioritize. So I wouldn't say Kyler is the top of my list of priorities. I probably do come in a little bit underweight to the field just because there are players that I want to prioritize more. I like him better than Darnold, but he's not the biggest priority spend up for me either. So ultimately, I probably do come in a little bit underweight on Kyler. With that said, Kyler, you don't really need to be stacking up regardless of where he is in your lineup. Again, while he only averages 30 some rush yards per game, when he does run, he can run a ton and put up a lot of points on the ground. Sharp is in, Ryan. All right. Anything else I'm missing here? Ooh, 30K swing for Deegs. That is not fun. Yeah, that was a rough one. Only lost me, actually at that point I was already out of first, so it didn't actually even cost me 6K because Rashad Bateman had already knocked me out. All right, let's move on to running backs. I will be doing the giveaway, by the way, after going over all the positions. I'll probably get the sims running, and then I'll go and do the giveaway while the sims are running is the plan. All right, moving on to running backs. One of the more interesting positions on this slate, because we now have so we have James Conner is out for the year. Unfortunately, Trey Benson is expected to take over the James Conner role, just step right in and be that lead back. But we don't really know for sure if that is the plan. That has been kind of what the coach speak has suggested, that they're confident in Trey Benson's ability to step into a bigger role, that they think he will be great in his new role. But when they talk about a bigger role, his new role, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's stepping into the actual James Conner role. It could be he's playing just a little bit more than he was playing. It could mean that he's taking more than what James Conner had previously, because maybe they have 2 running backs that they really liked and they were splitting it because they liked both of those running backs so much. And maybe with James Conner out, well, they're just going to lean more on the other running back that they really like. So there's kind of a wide range of outcomes for what they could do with Trey Benson here. But the expectation is something along the lines of essentially what James Conner was maybe this year, maybe even what James Conner was last year, which was a little bit better. But Benson, 8,800, projected for 40% flex ownership, 18% captain ownership, in a matchup with the Seahawks defense that has been okay for running back so far. It is, I believe, the ninth best matchup in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed through 3 weeks. Now, obviously, a small sample size, but so far it's been essentially neutral for running backs on the ground, a little bit above average for running backs through the air. So a fine matchup for Benson in his first game as the bell cow here, or as the expected bell cow here, but getting a ton of ownership again, 40% flex, 18% captain. I'd be okay with getting too close to those numbers for Benson. Again, not one that I'm forcing my way onto more than what I'm getting currently, but I think those numbers are totally fine. I would be okay getting to that much of Benson. But he's also one, because I'm prioritizing some other players, if I end up getting a little bit less, I would also be okay with that. The trick and I didn't go over, I usually start with the away team, and I did not do that. But I'm going to continue on talking about the Cardinals because I didn't scroll up already. So I'll do Cardinals first and then go back and do Seahawks. The tricky thing is, we were kind of assuming earlier that Emari Demercado is the clear number 2, and that is probably correct. I think Emari Demercado likely to be the number 2 running back here, mostly going to be Benson and Demercado. If I had to guess, that would be the order. Benson gets the most work, Demercado gets the second most work. But then it's a little bit less of a sure thing now that Michael Carter was called up from the practice squad. Of course, he's a veteran player. I think a kind of talented player. Like, he has not had a ton of NFL success, but I think he's had a pretty decent career in my opinion. So he's 200 at min price. I think he's almost interesting. But Demercado, again, 11% flex ownership, 0% captain ownership. If we make the assumption that he is still the next up after Trey Benson, I think he's pretty interesting at 3,800 because I think it's, like I said, it's a little bit of a murky situation here where it could be that the team just really likes Trey Benson and James Conner, and it's going to be Trey Benson just taking on a huge workload here. Or it could be that Trey Benson essentially steps into the James Conner role for what he was having earlier this year, which was a pretty good role. He had 39 expected fantasy points through 3 games. But then it could be that Emari Demercado steps into what was the Trey Benson role, and they're still splitting carries similar to what they had been before, and they really don't want to give the full bell cow workload to Trey Benson. So it's possible that Emari Demercado still has a pretty good role here, and if he's taken on that Trey Benson role, that would be 25.5 expected fantasy points through 3 weeks. That would be a really strong projection, 8.5 points per game. For 3,800 would be a really strong projection. So I do think Emari Demercado at 11% ownership, just given that he may have a bigger workload than expected. Again, last year they were using him a lot more than anybody expected. I think he's a fine play. I wouldn't call him a priority, but at 11% ownership, I do think that's a number that I would like to get at least to that number. I kind of want to see what RG has the number at. Yeah, they have met under 10%. He's too expensive for it to be a huge priority. Like, if he were 1,200, I would love it. I would play a ton of Demercado. At 3,800, it's like he could score a touchdown and still not pay off that price tag. So it doesn't become like a player that I want to have in 40% of my lineups. But I do think probably I get to double digits of Demercado, or probably I'd like to get to double digits because I think he's cheap enough, and there's enough of a possibility that he gets like double-digit touches that I am intrigued by Demercado. I think he's a pretty good play. I also think Michael Carter, if he actually gets no ownership, which maybe I'll refresh now and see if this has changed at all. But if he actually gets no ownership at 200, some interest. We don't have a ton of $200 options. Let me refresh. He's not projected for any ownership here. I'm going to refresh RG also. Just kind of want to get an idea of if anybody has him getting any more ownership. I think the general assumption is going to be that it's DeMarcado RB2 and Michael Carter just kind of not really relevant here. They've got him at about 2.5% ownership. I think only because he is 200, he becomes like sort of interesting to me. Not somebody that I want to have in a ton of lineups, but I wouldn't mind getting to like 5% or so of Michael Carter. What do you guys think? Am I crazy? I don't know. I think 5% seems like a fair number. This is in fact the same Michael Carter that vultures TDs for the Jets. So maybe he continues to vulture some TDs. What's up, EMAC? Old man. Just did a show with EMAC on Friday for anybody who missed it on the Fantasy Points channel. So yeah, I think Michael Carter, again, the floor is 0 and the floor is like has a pretty good chance of hitting, but at 200, vulture 1 touchdown and he's probably in the optimal. So I think Michael Carter is a fine contrarian play in the largest fields, only the largest fields. Zach Charbonnet is playing here, so we have the two main backs for the Seahawks. I don't think I'm getting to any like George Holani at 2,400. I don't think you need to worry about anybody else now that we have both Walker and Sharps active. But it's a really intriguing situation, I would say, between Walker and Charbonnet, because through 2 weeks they had, if I'm remembering correctly, the exact same number of expected fantasy points. I believe they had 25 apiece through 2 weeks. Let me double check myself on this. And then last game we had Sharps out for week 3, and we saw in week 3 we saw Kenneth Walker put up not even a great game, to be honest. He scored 2 touchdowns, otherwise was relatively inefficient. But yeah, so through 2 weeks, 18 expected fantasy points for each of Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. We saw Charbonnet had a little bit more success in week 1. Walker put up a big game in week 2. Ultimately, through 2 weeks, it was 23 carries for Walker, 27 for Charbonnet. Charbonnet had actually run more routes, 30% route participation to 25% for Walker, but Walker saw 4 targets. I think both are capable of catching passes. Obviously not amazing route participation. Both 30% or lower, even in the game that Walker or that Charbonnet missed. I think Walker's route participation only got up to like 38%, so not like he's extremely used. Walker is 10,400, so he is a pay up. He's clearly too expensive for the role that he has with Charbonnet. And yet, if he comes in at 20% ownership, I think Walker is a priority for me. Somebody that I would like to be pretty significantly over the field. At least I think I'd like to get to like 35-40% of Walker if he comes in at 20% ownership as he's being projected here. And I think elsewhere it looks similar. Let me see. Yeah, our RG has him at 16% flex ownership. I think he's a strong play both at captain and at flex at these numbers. I would want to be over the field on Kenneth Walker. In terms of the matchup, it is the 10th best schedule, Arizona has allowed the 10th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to running backs. More of that coming through the air than on the ground. It's been a slightly negative matchup on the ground, slightly positive matchup through the air. Ultimately, 10th best matchup so far in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. I think there's a lot of ways this could go. Maybe Charbonnet still kind of recovering from that foot injury. Maybe they don't want to give him the full workload that they had been. So the opposite possibility where, hey, we're on a short week. We just gave Kenneth Walker the bulk of carries on Sunday. Now Zach Charbonnet is returning. He can put in the work, and maybe we don't overuse Kenneth Walker, 2 games in 4-5 days. So I think there's a wide range of outcomes for how the usage goes here. I just know that even if they are completely splitting carries as they had been before, Kenneth Walker just has the ability to break one off and put up a big score in a limited sample. So even if he doesn't get a ton of work, he can just put up a big score in a hurry. Yeah, I do like Carter more than Knight. I think Carter's more likely to get the work, but I'm just speculating because Carter, was kind of unexpected. But yeah, I think I prefer Carter over Knight. Got to make some concessions. I don't think I'm going to play Knight. I think I'm just going to play it as though Carter is the number 3 there. So ultimately, Kenneth Walker is somebody that I want to prioritize as a low floor and frankly somewhat unlikely to pay off his price tag. So I want to be clear about that. At 10,400, he is too expensive to be splitting carries and to be this expensive. He's 5,000 more dollars than Zach Charbonnet, and they were essentially had equal roles going into week 3 before Charbonnet's injury. They had the exact same number of expected fantasy points, but because we know that Kenneth Walker just has the ability to put up a big score on like one play, I think he's just going a little bit under owned, and it's tough for people to want to pay that much. And I'm talking, I should note, I'm talking about large field contests. That's all I play is very large field contests. I think every contest I'm playing tonight has at least 10,000 entries in it. It would be different if I were playing in a contest that has 1,000 entries in it. Probably don't need to get to Kenneth Walker quite as much. He's more of a priority for me in large field contests because you got to find ways to get a little bit different to really get ahead of the field there. So in large field contests, I think Kenneth Walker actually a pretty strong play. It's somebody that I'm going to be trying to get maybe close to double the field. Zach Charbonnet, a play in any type of contest because he's only 5,400 and again had the exact same number of expected fantasy points as Kenneth Walker through 2 weeks. Just had a pretty strong role. I should also note, like in week 2, Zach Charbonnet was extremely inefficient while Kenneth Walker was extremely efficient. So it is also possible that Kenneth Walker does take on a bigger role. The way the coaches have talked about them, it's like, oh, we think we have 2 starting running backs. We want to balance them. We'd like to give them both as much work as possible. So the coach speak kind of suggests that this is a total split between Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, but it also would make sense if they just saw, hey, Kenneth Walker was awesome in week 2. He scored 2 touchdowns in week 3, not quite as efficient, but he did score 2 touchdowns and they dominated. It wouldn't be that shocking if the coaching staff starts to prioritize Kenneth Walker a little bit more since he's had so much success the past couple games. We'll see. Walker also was coming into the season with a little bit of an injury. Again, wide range of outcomes here, but Charbonnet at 5,400, given the role that he had, is clearly too cheap if he maintains that role. He is getting a fair amount of ownership, though. 46% flex ownership, 5% captain ownership. These are not numbers that I would anticipate getting higher than. I would guess, if anything, I end up a little bit under the field on Charbonnet, despite recognizing that he's a pretty obvious value at 5,400, given that he had been sharing work. Now, this is interesting. RG has Charbonnet at just 18% projected ownership in the flex compared to 46%. Now, that's a pretty drastic difference there. I'm just going to refresh here. If I leave in the 46% number, my guess is that I don't get to that much Charbonnet. I guess I'm not positive about that. What do they have met at captain? Let's see here. 8.5% at captain. So they have Charbonnet as being pretty underowned. I might need to split the difference. I'll see how much I get here. But I would guess that he comes in, frankly, between these numbers. I'd be pretty surprised if he comes in as low as RG has him, but I'd also be a little bit surprised if he comes in. No, I think I would guess that it's probably closer to this number. Like, he's just such a clear value. I would guess that it's closer to this 51% total ownership. I think you can play them together. Not a huge priority. Like, sometimes there are team running backs where it is a priority for me to play both of them on the same team. I don't think this is one where it will be a priority for me. I think if it happens, it happens, but I'm not like going out of my way to play the Seattle backs in a, it's a fine matchup. Again, 10th best in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, but not like a huge priority for me. All right. Let's move on to receivers. Let me just double check my notes, make sure I didn't have anything else on the running backs before I move on. I don't think I did. Yeah, Clint Kubiak. We want both of these guys to play as much as possible. I see 2 starters on the backfield there for the Seahawks. Okay. Yep, that's all I've got for the running backs. Let's move on to the receivers. And I will start with the away team. Seahawks, JSN looks awesome. definitely a priority. I think of all the spend ups who are getting a fair amount of ownership, he is the biggest priority for me. This is just a great spot for JSN. He's 11,000, projected for 37% flex ownership, 25% captain ownership. Just getting so much work that it's really hard not to want to play all the JSN. Now they haven't been throwing a ton, so as we talked about on the show earlier, he only has 29 targets on the season. But if you look at his target share, leads the NFL 37.7% target share so far on the year. I think that is going to, pretty close to hold up. Maybe, I mean, this is 37.7%, probably not, but I think having one of the highest target shares in the NFL likely to hold up for JSN, because I think he is probably there. I think he's their pretty clear top receiver here. 82.7% route participation. That number is a little bit lower than it would have been if they played in some competitive games. So I think if this game stays competitive, you can expect that route participation to be higher than it has been so far on the year. I think JSN just targeted enough that he is a pretty clear priority here. If we look at the cornerback matchups, shows out as a great matchup here for JSN. Look at this, the advantage score. So the matchup, I guess, itself does not show up as like amazing, just a slightly above average matchup. But then the advantage score, I believe that is maybe the highest of the entire week. Let me see if I can. Yeah, it's the highest advantage score of any receiver on the entire week. Cornerback Will Johnson, who is the best cornerback on the Cardinals, is out for this game. Should benefit Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he's just a fantastic play given the workload. He's expensive enough that it could fail. He could not score a touchdown, have 6 catches for 80 yards, and it's not enough on this slate. There are ways for it to fail, but there are ways for him to just absolutely smash. Even at this price tag, in general, I would say he is my favorite priority of the spend ups. My biggest priority of the spend ups. He's my favorite captain play on the slate. At 25% captain ownership, it gets a little bit high. RG has him at 17.5% ownership. I think, and I've talked about this before, just anytime you get a premium defender out, you go from like one of the top defenders at his position to a backup. That's just such a huge upgrade in general in terms of matchup. So I'm very into JSN tonight. Not really a hot take, but he is, again, my priority of the spend ups. I think in general, so maybe I do end up with more of Sam Darnold than I have anticipated, because I like basically all aspects. Well, the top 3 receivers on the Seahawks are all kind of priorities. Cooper Kupp, 7,000. He's probably a little bit too expensive for the role he has had so far on a team that has just not thrown the ball a ton. He's, again, 7,000, 22% flex ownership, 2% captain ownership. The reason I have interest is, again, kind of low ownership here. He's a bit of a pay up to be contrarian option at 7,000. He actually has a pretty good role here. I mean, you can see the gap down, literally less than half the target share of Cooper Kupp. I would guess that he comes up a little bit closer to JSN, or I guess maybe JSN comes down a little bit closer. Over a larger sample size here. But even at this target share, 14 targets through 3 weeks is not nothing for a team that has not been throwing a ton. 18.2% target share. I don't want to make it sound like I think he's a huge priority, but he is somebody that I want to get above 22% on, just because I think that he's the pretty clear number 2 receiver here, and he's too cheap for the role. We don't have a ton of great pay up options. So I do think Cooper Kupp, I want to be at least above that 22% we have him coming in at. And then you have Torrey Horton, who it really comes down to ownership there. Because his price a little bit too close to Cooper Kupp, given the disparity in their roles so far. They're only 1,200 apart in terms of price tag. And Cooper Kupp clearly has the better role so far, has 18.2% target share to 10.4. If these numbers hold, he has a pretty clear advantage there. It's also only 6 more targets though, so it is kind of a small sample size. Torrey Horton also just 56.8% route participation on the year. It wouldn't be shocking to see Torrey Horton's route participation move up over time. So far, we haven't really seen it. Let's look at the route share report here. So far we've seen Cooper Kupp's route share go from 84% to 74% to 71%. Torrey Horton 64 down to 49, back up to 62. We looked at this, and Horton actually didn't really benefit much from the blowout in the last game, as I thought it might have. And he ran 100% of the routes in the fourth quarter, but it was just 3 routes total. So he was already running a lot of routes prior to the fourth quarter in that blowout. I think we just have a pretty clear, like, wide receiver 1 is JSN, wide receiver 2 is Kupp, wide receiver 3 is Horton for now. Horton, obviously a pretty good rookie. Offense coordinator Clint Kubiak was asked if Horton reminds him of any other rookies he's worked with, and he kind of smiled about it and said it's Justin Jefferson. After being coy for a little bit, he said he reminds him of a rookie season Justin Jefferson. At 5% ownership, I would also really like Horton. I think kind of similar to Kupp in that he is getting a little bit under-owned because he is too high priced. They're both just like a little bit higher priced than they should be for their roles on a team that doesn't throw all that much. But if you can get them at an ownership discount, those are often great GPP plays. Yeah, Horton 14% is where RG has him out. That number would be more like, okay, I think I still actually like it. I think I might want to come on top of that number, but I just did it again. Phrasing again. I think I might want to have more than the field if that is the number for Torrey Horton. But yeah, pretty big difference there, 5% to 14%. I think even at 14%, I'd be fine getting around that number. I don't think I need to get to any Tariq Young or Jake Bobo or any other receivers on the Seahawks. All right, moving on to the Cardinals. Horton does also have touchdowns. He has scored a punt return touchdown already. Kieran, yeah, come on. I caught myself this time. Same phrasing as I used earlier. All right. Let's talk about the Arizona receivers. We'll start with Marvin Harrison, 7,800 projected for 30% flex ownership, 5% captain ownership. Has a pretty strong role here. Oh, did I give hang on, schedule adjusted? Let's take a look at the schedule adjusted for the Seahawks first. Again, 5th best. I didn't mention this part. Part of the reason I like the receivers so much in terms of schedule adjusted, the Cardinals have given up the 5th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to wide receivers so far on the season, and now they're missing he was out the last game too, though, Will Johnson, but again, missing their best cover corner in Will Johnson. So just a really strong matchup for the Seahawks receivers. Cardinals receivers, not so good. It is the 2nd worst matchup with this Seahawks defense. So then, again, Marvin Harrison Jr., 7,800. So he's kind of cheap for his role as the clear top receiver here. 30% flex ownership, 5% captain ownership going to Marvin Harrison. He's the top receiver, but he's also pretty clearly number 2 in the pecking order behind Trey McBride. He has an 18% target share. So again, that is in line with where Cooper Kupp is on the Seahawks. So even though he is the top receiver, once you factor in Trey McBride, he's kind of got the same role as Cooper Kupp. 91.5% route participation. That is a little bit better than Cooper Kupp's 16 targets on the season. I think he looks like a strong play. I don't think that he's somebody that I'm prioritizing getting above weight to 35% total or even 5% of captain. I might want to get higher than 5% of captain, but ultimately I think 35% total exposure to Marvin Harrison seems about right. I don't think that I have any huge great takes there. I think that's about where he should be. Oh, and I guess I should have let off. I guess I'll lead off talking about the rest of the receivers. I don't think it really affects Marvin Harrison anyway. So I'll lead off talking about the secondary, tertiary receivers on the Cardinals by noting Zay Jones out with a concussion. So he had been a pretty big part, right? Maybe pretty big part is an overstatement, but he had been involved in the offense in the season. 43.2% route participation, 51.7% and 52.5% for Zay Jones. So those are the numbers that we are replacing in terms of route participation. So those are going to go to some number. Who knows how it's going to be distributed, but it'll go to likely. I guess we don't even know if it's going to go to receivers, but Wilson could benefit. Greg Dortch could benefit. Xavier Weaver, Simi Fehoko could benefit. The way I am playing it is that Michael Wilson, I think, essentially just retains the role that he has had so far. I think he was already kind of the number 2 receiver here. So I don't really think he benefits much from Zay Jones being out. But he's a fine play anyway. 3,400, 21% flex ownership, 1% captain ownership going to Michael Wilson. I think that he's a relatively strong play on the season. Just 8 targets, 9% target share on 75.5% route participation. Certainly capable of, he's a big receiver, capable of scoring some touchdowns, making some splash plays. He made a few last year. At 3,400, I think he's a relatively strong play, even in a somewhat tough matchup. 22%. I don't think that I love him enough to get above that 22% number. It looks like it's about the same as RG. I think that's a fair number on Michael Wilson. Greg Dortch, if he does come in at 8% ownership, I think Greg Dortch, of all the players that could benefit from Zay Jones's absence, I think Greg Dortch is the most likely to benefit. Coming in at 8% flex ownership, I do want to double check if it's the same. Where is he? Okay, 19%. So pretty big difference in the projected ownerships for Greg Dortch. But he would benefit, or I would expect him to be the biggest beneficiary of Zay Jones being out, based on what happened last year. Let me go find my notes. So Jones missed the first 6 games of the season last year. In one of those games, Trey McBride was also out, and Dortch saw a huge uptick in route participation. So I threw out that game. In the 5 games that Zay Jones was out to start the year last year, and McBride was active, Dortch had 22 targets on 60% route participation, which is a lot better than his numbers so far this year. So a little bit more, like 4.5 targets per game, 60% route participation in those games without Jones last year. So if those numbers hold, then he would benefit quite a bit. So far on the season, just 4 targets for Dortch in 3 games on 21.7% route participation. I think looking at his games with and without Jones last year, he clearly benefited from Jones being out. He may have lost favor. Adam and I talked about it a little bit earlier. There's a possibility that he's lost favor a little bit for the Cardinals. I'm not sure that that didn't seem totally obvious to me that he lost favor with the Cardinals over time last year. Just looking at his route participation, he may have. So he again, these are the games with Jones out. He kind of lost a little bit later in the year, but he went from, so with Jones back, 34%, 46%, 52%, 28%, 23%, 14%, but then back up to 45%. I don't know. I kind of think his numbers were all over the place in games where Jones played last year. So I'm not sure if he has really lost favor relative to early in the year when Jones is out last year. I think it could come back to that 60-ish% route participation, 4 targets per game, 4.5 targets per game. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of ways that the usage could be split now with Zay Jones out. It's a year later. A lot changes in a year. But I think Dortch is probably the player most likely to benefit. So I actually think he is a strong play if he comes in at 8% ownership. If he comes in at 19%, I think he's honestly fine. I think I probably come in close to that number on Greg Dortch, but not a number that I'm excited to come to have more than the field on. Then you have Xavier Weaver and Simi Fehoko. I guess they're only 200. I haven't given much thought to playing either of them. Neither has run a route yet on the season, if I'm reading this right. Yeah, neither has run a route yet on the season. Have they played at all? Let me look at the snap share report. Was kind of thinking I might just gloss over them because we have enough strong players on this slate already that we don't need to play everybody. But yeah, Fehoko has not played a snap. And then who was the other one I was looking at? Oh, Xavier Weaver has not played a snap, it looks like. So probably don't need to. Maybe they benefit from Zay Jones. Maybe they get the snaps instead. I kind of doubt it. I don't know. I think they're fine. I don't know that I'm going to get to any Weaver or Fehoko. I think if the Sims give me some, I'd be okay with playing some, but not huge priorities for me. But kind of interesting if they're going to get zero ownership as players who could potentially benefit from Zay Jones being out. I don't think that's how I'm going to play it. All right, let's move on. Talk about some tight ends. I'll check in with chat first. All right. Dortch. Yeah, Dortch. I think Dortch could take over the slot role from Zay. Exactly. That's what he did last year. All right, let's see here. Zay plays some in the slot. Anton doesn't play exclusively in the slot, but he played like a third of his snaps in the slot. Let's see. Can you switch it on, Kieran? I think the default is apparently memberships turned off, but yeah, I think you can switch it on. Good luck to you. Also, crutches. Let's see. Yeah, good milli dart throws. Exactly right. I think they're fine. Fehoko has been. He's done some stuff in the past. I think he's a fine option. All right, I'm going to move on to the tight ends. Again, relatively interesting options at tight end tonight. Less so for the Seahawks than the Cardinals, but the Seahawks, you do have AJ Barner's 2,800, Elijah Arroyo 800. I think both are very much in play. I would like to get some exposure to each of them. AJ Barner projected for 19% flex ownership at 2,800. Seems to be the leader of the tight ends there on the season. Barner, just 5 targets, but at least 61.7% route participation. He's a capable pass catcher. I think he's a fine play at 19% ownership, just given his involvement as the pseudo starting tight end for the Seahawks. I think he's fine at 19%. Not a huge priority for me to get overweight there. Elijah Arroyo, rookie tight end, 800, projected for 29% flex ownership, 1% captain ownership. 5 targets also on the year at 34.6% route participation. I like the price tag on him. I'm intrigued. I kind of want to play some. Let's see. Let me go back to route share for this year. I want to see if it has changed. I think I looked at this earlier, but need a refresher. So we've seen Barner. Barner's actually lost his route participation over time, 72% to 65.7. Oh, this is in a blowout though, so that could be just he lost route participation in the blowout. And then Elijah Arroyo, 20% up to 48.6%, back down to 28.6%. But ultimately, they do have the same number of targets on the season. If we were getting Arroyo at lower ownership, I would be interested. And actually, again, the ownership very different, pretty drastic differences. The RG has Arroyo at 10% projected ownership, which at 10% at 800, yeah, I think that's a number that I'd like to be probably a little bit overweight on that number. At 29%, it's pretty easy fade, get under that number. I don't know. I think I'll probably play close to that 10% number. Which I think is fine either way, because I think if he comes in at 29%, I certainly want to be underweight. If he comes in at 10%, I think that's a totally reasonable number. So if I were trying to shoot for a number for my exposure for Elijah Arroyo, it would be right around 10%. I think that's a reasonable number. He's a little bit too cheap, again, at 800, but not like way too cheap. He has 5 targets in 3 games. So same number as Elijah Arroyo, as AJ Barner, but it's not like he's getting a ton of work either way. And I don't think we've gotten any kind of reason to believe that number is coming up based on coach speak or anything. Cardinals. Oh, and I'll bring up, before I look at the Cardinals tight ends, to show you schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed per game. It is a below average matchup for tight ends against the Cardinals. Looks like it's about a bottom 10 or so matchup for tight ends so far in the year. Again, small sample size, but it has been a really nice matchup for tight ends facing the Seahawks so far, the second best in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. So one more reason to really like the Cardinals tight ends here. And I already thought they were great plays here. Trey McBride, maybe my second favorite behind JSN of the pay up options. He's 9,800 projected for 31% flex ownership, 17% captain ownership. Again, great matchup here with the Seahawks for tight ends, and just the clear number one receiving option for the Cardinals so far again this year. 25.8% target share, leads the team by 7 targets on the season. 89.6% route participation, scored a touchdown last week. Apparently he's capable of scoring touchdowns now. I think Trey McBride just looks like a great option because he puts up big scores even without scoring touchdowns. And then if he puts a touchdown on top of it, then he's again, putting up slate breaking type numbers. So Trey McBride, pretty clearly one of the best plays on the slate. And then you also have Tip Ryman and Elijah Higgins, who again could see a little bit of an increase in playing time with Zay Jones out. Again, I think the biggest beneficiary, most likely, if I had to guess, is Greg Dortch. But it wouldn't be surprising if Greg Dortch benefits a little bit, but then they just play more 12 personnel. They play more of Tip Ryman and or Elijah Higgins. Ryman is 2,000, Higgins 1,600. Neither of them getting a ton of ownership. If we look at RG, it comes in a little bit higher. They're both getting about 3% ownership compared to 1%. Either way, I think they're too low owned given their potential uptick in usage. I particularly like Ryman. Ryman, kind of a priority for me. I think I'd like to get into the double digits for Ryman. Higgins, a lesser priority, but also someone that I have interest in playing. Ryman already in the 2 games that he's played, 32.4% route participation, 32.5%. So those are totally fine numbers for a backup tight end. So the typical backup tight end, you're hoping for a touchdown type play. If he scores a touchdown, he likely pays off. So even if he doesn't see an increase in playing time without Zay Jones, I think Ryman is a strong play at 1 to 3% ownership, and I'd like to get to double digits. And then he has the added benefit of potentially benefiting, getting more usage with Zay Jones out. Elijah Higgins, not somebody who I would really want to play based on week 3, 7.5% route participation, a little bit of a weaker backup tight end type play, but again, could benefit from Zay Jones being out. So I do think I'd like to get 5 to 10%, maybe Elijah Higgins. Again, Ryman, the bigger priority of the two, but I think both are in play at pretty low ownership here. Pretty strong contrarian options for large field contests. So that's it for the tight ends. Move on to, we've got a lot of comments here. Let me check in on comments and I'll get down to defenses, kickers. Let's see. Would you go with Cardinals or Rams defense? I forget who the Rams are playing. Oh, nice. Thank you guys for liking the video. Yeah, I appreciate you, Dan, for reminding people to like it, and please do subscribe if you haven't done so. I don't remember who the Rams are playing. I kind of like the spot for the Cardinals defense here at home. So I'll go with Cards. Let's see. If McBride is a captain, is Murray a must in flex? No, because they're expensive. I think he's a good play in flex if McBride is a captain, but not a must. Oh, they're playing the Colts? No, I wouldn't. I would prefer the Cardinals. The Colts have been just really good. They've only punted once on the year. Again, that could change at any moment, but in season long, you don't need to be taking any kind of risk like that. Favorite high dollar captain, JSN, followed by McBride, probably. Yeah, I've got the nickname. I've earned the nickname. It is what it is. All right. Defenses and kickers. Start at the top with the away team, the Seahawks. Jason Myers projected for 23% flex ownership, 1% captain ownership. Seahawks defense, 18% flex ownership, 0% captain. I think the number on Jason Myers, totally fine. No issue with it. I think I really like the defenses in this spot. Seahawks just have a really good defense, and I don't think Kyler Murray is infallible. I think that he's an inconsistent quarterback facing a really good defense that is only 4,000 for some reason. Now the game is in Arizona, which is not ideal, but ultimately a $4,000 really strong defense against Kyler Murray is always going to interest me. So I want to make sure that I get above the field on the Seahawks defense. They, I believe, are second in the league with 5 interceptions so far this year. We can look at the here. Let me pull up another team stats. OLDL matchups. In terms of pass grade, this is, according to OLDL matchups, great spot for the Seahawks passing game against the Cardinals. In terms of pressure rate so far on the season, neither team has been great from a pressure standpoint. Cardinals defense has pressured opposing offenses the second least in the NFL on the season. Seahawks defense a little bit better, the 16th most. So they're right middle of the pack in terms of their pressure rate so far on the season. Yards before contact. Wait, what's this? Yards before contact per attempt. So this is yards before contact allowed. Less important for actually playing the defense, more about who is going to, how will the running backs do. Kind of middle of the pack there. Anyway, I think that these defenses are good enough regardless. Just want to look at that real quick. I think that the Seahawks defense in particular at 4,000, just too cheap facing Kyler Murray. I like them quite a bit. I want to be 20 to 30% probably of the Seahawks defense. Again, five interceptions on the season so far. And then the Cardinals defense projected for 18% ownership. Chad Ryland, 21%. I think that's again, fine number. No real take on the kicker number. I do also think that I want to get above weight on 18% though for the Cardinals defense. Again, this is a home game for the Cardinals. They're facing Sam Darnold, who was terrible at the end of last year in really important games that everybody's watching. Sam Darnold kind of fell apart late last year. I would not be surprised to see him kind of fall apart again at some point this year. I don't want to, it's not necessarily the expectation, but I think that it's well within the range of outcomes that we see Sam Darnold in this divisional rival game on prime time, maybe not perform particularly well. And I think the Cardinals have a pretty strong defense. Now, again, they're missing their top corner cover, not ideal. But I still think a pretty strong defense here against Sam Darnold, who I think is just an inconsistent quarterback. Could start seeing ghosts. So yeah, I think the defenses for both teams are pretty strong. My preference is the Seahawks, but I actually think that they're both fairly strong plays. And the kickers, again, I don't have any real takes. I think they're getting about the ownership that they should. All right. He has indeed seen ghosts before. All right. Questions and lineups. I think at this point I'm gonna start getting the Sims run, and then I'm gonna do the giveaway to 10 people in chat. So if you're interested in the giveaway to win a membership, make sure you're on YouTube. Then you'll be able to on YouTube with the ability turned on to win memberships. Okay. I'm going to start by running the Sims here. So again, the first time that I run the Sims, I don't change anything to the inputs. I love that you can change the inputs. It's the reason I'm a big fan of Run the Sims. But for the first sim, I don't do any. I just change the settings. By the way, I should mention, I haven't even said it on the show yet. If you want to check out Run the Sims, you want to get a discount, you can use promo code Neil to get 10% off your first payment on any of their products. I am using the SimRunner Pro product if you want access to everything. I'm going to change the number of lineups. I'm going to do 15,000 to start. Size of contest field, I'm going to do the largest field because those are the contests that I play. Number of simulations, 10,000. I chose the top heavy payout structure because all the contests that I play have top heavy payout structures. And then I'm going to choose the diversify portfolio option, use the Shady Advice portfolio optimizer for 216 entries. This is going to diversify the lineups in my portfolio. So rather than just getting the top EV 216 lineups, it's going to give me the top EV portfolio overall of lineups that don't totally cannibalize each other. All right, now I'm just going to click SimRunner Pro button. Now the Sims are off and running. All right, now I'm going to, let's see. Appreciate you, Chris. I don't think I'm playing any Derek Young or Jake Bobo. I think we have enough like low owned, cheap players that I'm not going to. All right, let's see here. Chase could use it as a bald brother. Yeah. All right. Hoping some baldies win. All right, but let me see. I don't know if I can do it on my phone or if I need to do it in a browser. So I'm going to look on my phone first. I've never actually done this before, so I'm assuming it's possible, but do I know for sure that it's possible? I do not. I think I need to do it on my browser. All right, going to do it on a browser. Going to do a giveaway. Give me a second here. Bear with me. Okay, $ membership gifting. Uh-oh. Send gift membership free of charge. Okay, so I can do 5 for free. I can do 10 for free. I'm gonna do 5 right now, and then I'm gonna try and do another 5 immediately following. All right, so these are just the gift memberships. I will follow this by doing a hat giveaway to some members. So if you're winning a membership right now, you're not necessarily getting a hat, but you are getting access to Discord if you attach your YouTube account to Discord. You will get into the private private Discord channels. There's some different perks here where you can have different emojis and stuff. You've got your little axes now. Good to see you guys getting them. All right, I'm going to try and do 5 more now. And then again, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a hat giveaway to some members. Let's see here. Buy memberships. There we go. I can do 5 more for free. All right, I didn't know I could do that. That's cool. Save myself some money. So 5 more, getting them right now. All right, good. All right, it all worked out. We've got 10 new members of the channel. Very cool. Appreciate you all for being here, for hanging out with me, and for getting me to 5,000 subscribers. Sorry to anybody who did not win. You can also, if you want to be part of the hat giveaway, I'm going to be giving away. I've been thinking just 5 hats. I want to make sure that I have enough to members. So there are people who've already paid for it. I'll be giving away. You know what? I'll do a giveaway for 10 members tomorrow. So if you did not just win one, you can also pay $5 a month if you want to be part of that giveaway. 10 of the channel members I'll be doing a giveaway for tomorrow. I'll be just random 10 people selected for it. All right, we just got the lineups in for the first sim run. You can see here only 8,000 lineups are given to me. So for the next run, I can just do 10,000 lineups. Top EV, actually, it's not the top EV lineup. I should note these lineups are not in the order of the top EV because I'm using the Shady Portfolio tool. They're going to come in a different order because they're just giving me the top portfolio lineups, not just the top EV lineups in order. Top lineup we got here, though, is JSN captain with Cooper Kupp, Kyler Murray, Michael Wilson, Sam Darnold, and Tip Ryman. Love that. Very well correlated. No running backs, just playing the passing games for both teams. We got both quarterbacks stacked up. Second lineup, Kyler Murray captain, onslaught with Greg Dortch, Marvin Harrison, Tip Ryman, Trey McBride, and then JSN. Bring back, that one uses 50,000 salary. I want to see how many times that one is duped because I would guess quite a bit. No, not predict for many dupes at all. I'd be surprised if it comes in with that low dupe number. Basically 0 dupes. Obviously, this is for a field of 15,000. So you want to assume that these dupe numbers, it would be higher for a larger field. So in the contest that I play, they're about 10 times that size for the most part. Not all of them, but they're usually bigger than 15,000. You can assume that the dupes are 10x if there's 150,000 in the field. Third lineup, Kyler Murray with Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, Tip Ryman, Trey McBride, Kenneth Walker, bring back. So a lot of Cardinals onslaughts here. Some good looking lineups. So far, I'm not too mad about these looks. I love it. We got the people showing off the little emojis in there. Good to finally see people using the emojis in chat. All right. 1 second here. All right. Now I'm going to look at my exposures, and then I'm going to make some adjustments here. Actually, I'm going to download these and get them in because I currently do not have any lineups in. So before I take any risks, I'm going to make sure that I just have some lineups in my CSV. So let me upload these real quick. And yeah, if you did just win a membership, just make sure that you have your YouTube connected to your Discord, and then you can get into the private channels, which not very active. But you can obviously go in there and make them active. All right. I have not done a very good job of advertising the memberships. That's because I'm not doing anything with memberships right now. So it's really just the only reason you do it is to support me if you wanted to sign up. I mean, you can get access, but like, again, have not really put much behind the paywall. I would like to start doing a bit more there, though. Let's look at player exposures, starting with the quarterbacks, getting to, and I'm looking at the shady columns here because these are the numbers that I'm getting within the shady portfolio optimizer, which those are the lineups that I'm playing. I'm getting to 41.4% Kyler Murray in the flex, 27.7% at captain. So I'm overweight at captain of Kyler Murray, getting a little bit less than the field. So looking good with my Sam Darnold exposure, 43.3% in the flex, just 2% at captain. Both of those seem about in line where I'd like them to be. So that's good to see. I'll go to running back. I'm getting to a little bit underweight to Trey Benson. Looks like 34% in the flex, 2.5% at captain. Zach Charbonnet, I'm getting to about 40% total exposure, 8% of it at captain, 33% of it in the flex. And that's with a pretty high, they have Charbonnet at 46% flex, 5% captain ownership. So relatively high ownership on Charbonnet. Still getting a fair amount, a little bit under the field. Kenneth Walker, getting over the field here. So getting 21% in the flex compared to 18% projected, 4% at captain compared to 2 projected. Good to see that. Imari DiMercado actually not getting much, 5.6% flex ownership compared to 11% for the field. Michael Carter, I do have 1.4%. So I was saying I'd maybe interested in getting a little bit there, but not a huge priority. 1.4% seems probably fine to me. I think I'm mostly okay with these numbers so far, the exposures that I'm getting. We'll see. JSN getting to 33% of captain, 25% of flex. Again, okay with that. JSN, my favorite captain on the slate. A little bit light at flex relative to the field, but heavy enough at captain that I think it offsets. Cooper Kupp, I'm above weight to the field, 32% in the flex, 9.5% at captain. That all looks pretty good to me. Marvin Harrison, I am slightly below the field, 27% in the flex, 3% at captain. Michael Wilson, I am slightly over the field, 24% at flex, 0% at captain. Greg Dortch, I'm double the field, 16% in the flex. Torrey Horton, I am double the field with the 5% projection at 10%. And then I don't have any other receivers. So far, I don't see anything that I feel the need to adjust. So far, my hopes are right in line with what the sims are giving me, or close enough to in line. All right, tight end. All right, so I am a little bit underweight on Trey McBride, who is probably my second favorite play on the slate. 36% flex, 8% captain. So that's one that it's not far enough that I would necessarily need to make changes just for that one, but I'll probably run another sim to try to get to a little bit more McBride. AJ Barner getting to 7.6% seems fine. Elijah Arroyo, I think I'm getting only 3% because they haven't projected for 30% ownership. I think that's a little higher than it's going to be, so I might bring that projected ownership down just a little bit. Tip Ryman, I'm getting to 22%. That looks, way more than he's projected for 1% ownership, and I'm getting 22%. I think that looks pretty good. I think he's a strong play. Elijah Higgins, I'm getting to 5.5% flex ownership compared to 1% to the field. That looks good to me. So in general, I'd say I'm not too. I'd be pretty fine if this was just the set that I'm playing. Kickers, so this is more of Chad Ryland than I feel the need to get. So he's one that I could cut back on a little bit. I'm getting to 50% total ownership, almost all of it in the flex, 0.5% at captain. Jason Myers, 32% flex ownership, none at captain. That's fine with me. I might need to, okay, defenses, I think I'm going to try to get to a little bit more. Currently getting to 16% of the Seahawks, 1% of captain, 12.5% of the Cardinals, 1% of captain. I think that's the spot that I'm most inclined to IKB. So I will go in and change those a little bit. Oh yeah, Perry, I can do that. Let me run this sim and then I'll go look at FanDuel real quickly. Yeah, I haven't been doing that as much recently. Let me get this sim running after I make some adjustments, and then I'll take a brief look at FanDuel. All right, so the biggest thing, see what adjustments I need to make. Again, mostly happy with what I was getting. Maybe I'll move up Kenneth Walker's. I'm going to click the Smart Adjust button to proportionally change things. I'm going to move up Kenneth Walker's market share slightly to 48%. I think I'm going to move down Charbonnet's. No, I think his ownership is probably not that far off that I necessarily need to change it. Wouldn't mind getting to a little bit more Torrey Horton, but I also think he's going to be higher owned than he's being projected for. I think I'm mostly happy with what I'm getting here. I think what I will do, I think I'm just going to leave that as is for now. But I'm going to move up the sack rate for the Seahawks to 8%. I'm going to normalize. And then the Cardinals, I might want a little bit more DeMercado. I'm going to move up his rush share just slightly to 18%. Oh, and actually move it back to 15, and then I need to click Smart Adjust. 18%. Michael Carter, I'm going to move to 7%. I'm going to bring Kyler's market share down slightly to 20%. And then I'm going to normalize. Just getting to a fair amount of Dortch, which I liked. Want a little bit more McBride, I think. Just going to get rid of this Vokalek because I don't know anything about him. Going to get rid of Xavier Weaver, I think. Maybe I'll leave it. Yeah, there's nobody I really want to get less of here. So I don't want to change things too drastically. Do I want more Ryman at the expense of Higgins? Possibly. I think I'll just leave it. Normalize. Going to move the Cardinal sack rate up to 8%. So I should get less of some of the other players that I like as I'm trying to get more of the defenses. It's kind of inevitable, but all right, now I'm going to click Sims, see what comes out. And now like I'm happy enough with the lineups that I have that I wouldn't be that devastated if things don't change that much. I'll take a quick look at FanDuel. All right, so starting at MVP, sorted by ownership. Kyler getting the most ownership, no real issue with 18%. Benson getting 15%. I guess at his price tag, that's fine. JSN would be my favorite. He is also the most expensive here, though. Still probably my favorite MVP option. Kenneth Walker getting 9%. So a little bit higher owned at MVP here. I'm fine with it, but not as big of a priority. He's getting much lower on DraftKings. Darnold actually looks a little bit better on FanDuel to me, where it's not full PPR. McBride actually would probably be. I think McBride might actually be my favorite MVP option on FanDuel. A little bit cheaper than JSN, so I think he jumps JSN as my favorite MVP on FanDuel. Charbonnet, a pretty strong option, just 6% ownership at 10,200. Seems okay. I actually think the defenses are pretty strong MVP options here. Cardinals coming in at 2%. Play them at MVP, and you can play basically whatever you want in the rest of your lineup, I would think. Seahawks actually too. They're a little bit more expensive than the Cardinals, but also really good defense. I think that the defenses are pretty strong MVP options on FanDuel. Yeah, I think those are the ones that stand out. Horton at 1% is fine. But yeah, I think the defenses are the one that I'm like, I would make sure that I get a little bit of exposure to the defenses at MVP. Really like JSN at 26% flex ownership. It's because he's so expensive. But that's another thing. If you play the defense at MVP, easier to get to JSN. He's going a little bit under owned at 26%. Cardinals a little bit more, 22%. Chalky in the flex. It's okay. No issue with that. Seahawks at 20%. So they're much chalkier in the flex than they are at MVP. Trey Benson at 18% ownership, pretty interesting. I like that. Charbonnet only 6,800, 15% ownership. I would have more than that. Again, McBride looks great. Dortch at 3,014. That looks really good to me. 3,000, 14% ownership. I'd like to get a lot of Dortch. Walker at in the flex, pretty contrarian here. Interesting. He's getting more ownership at MVP, but less in the flex. Yeah, he looks good at 14% ownership here. Horton at 12.5% looks really good at 5,400. Tip Ryman, great play at 1,600, under 4% ownership. Again, the floor is not high. The floor is basically zero for these Ryman and Higgins, but the ceiling at 1,600 is, the usage could be pretty good there. So I like it at sub 4%. Yeah, I think those are the ones that stand out to me from a ownership and pricing standpoint. All right, getting rid of the. Oh, we got another gifter. Look at this guy. Appreciate you, Collective Gaming, gifting 5 more memberships. People who will be in the drawing for the hack giveaway tomorrow. Getting rid of some of this spam, which I assume is already gone on your end, but I can still see it. Yeah, Brandon, I did 20 minutes to get in. I believe. I think I remembered to set it as a 20-minute to chat to try to get rid of the bots. But once you get later into the show, then they start coming anyway. All right, diversifying payouts. That means we are almost done with this set of the Sims. I might have time to do one more. We'll see. Oh, I didn't change it to 10,000 last time. I need to remember to change the setting down to 10,000 lineups. I don't know if it makes a difference, but it might. Terry McLaurin doesn't need surgery now, they say. Yeah. Dan Brown, if you're listening, asked if I prefer Carter or Knight. It would be Knight for me. Sorry, it would be Carter for me. Yeah, Carter for me. All right. The Sims are run. I'm just going to respond in that Discord real quick. Okay. First lineup after slight adjustments have got another Kyler Murray onslaught with Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, Tip Ryman, Trey McBride. This one is Kenneth Walker bringback. Second lineup, JSN with Chad Ryland, Cooper Kupp, Sam Darnold, Seahawks defense, and Zach Charbonnet. Third lineup, Kyler Murray with Marvin Harrison, Tip Ryman, Trey Benson, Trey McBride, Zach Charbonnet. All right, I'm gonna download these and try to run it one more time. I think I'm going to download and not actually put them in just yet because I want to look at the exposures a little bit. Okay. See if it's actually better than what I was getting before. All right. So at quarterback, still getting to a lot of Kyler, a little bit less than I was before. Still getting to about the same amount of Darnold. Looks like a little bit more in the captain spot. I don't really hate that. I think it's fine. Trey Benson still similar to where I was before. Charbonnet still right at 32%. I think that came down. I think it was around 40% before. Still a little bit over the field of what's projected on Walker. Looks good. 6% DeMarcado, 3% Michael Carter. A little bit under on DeMarcado. I wouldn't mind getting a little bit more there. Wide receiver is still about the same. Getting to a ton of JSN. Over the field on Cooper Kupp. Love both of that. Slightly under the field on Marvin Harrison, but pretty close to it, which is right where I want to be. Michael Wilson, I am slightly under the field, but not far off. Looks fine. Greg Dortch, I am higher than the field, what's projected, so that looks good. I was getting 16% before. That came down a little bit. Torrey Horton, I am still slightly over the field, although he's projected for higher ownership at RG, so who knows? Maybe this ends up being well under the field. I wouldn't mind getting to a little bit more Torrey Horton. Let's see. Tight end, I got to more McBride, which that was kind of the goal. Still around where I'd like to be on Barner. Still only 4% Arroyo, which I'm fine being under the field there. 22%. Ryman looks good. Only 1.8% Higgins. Don't love that. I probably got to less of Higgins because I increased my McBride market share a little bit. Kickers down to 34% Ryland, 21% Myers. That looks closer to where I want it to be. Defenses I did bring up a little bit, 29.5% Seahawks with 3.4% at captain, 18% Cardinals with 2.6% at captain. So those are closer to where I want them to be. All right, I'm gonna see if I can get one more run of the Sims in. Let me see what do I need to change here. I think I really like I do want a little bit more Horton, I think. So I'm gonna bring him up to 12%. Could get to a little bit less. I'm just going to bring Cup down very slightly before I normalize this. Okay. I think I'm mostly okay with that. Maybe. All right. Wonder if I kind of want more of Horton, but no, I think it's fine. I think I changed him enough. Okay. And then on the other side, I do really like Tip Ryman. I wouldn't mind getting a little bit more Higgins. I don't know if there's anybody else that I want to. I wasn't getting any Fehoko or Weaver anyway, so maybe I'll just remove them. Increase Higgins slightly. Oh, and I wanted a little bit more DeMarcado. Yeah, I'm going to move him up slightly. Okay, I need to normalize my top. Okay, that's not working. Get rid of Eric Saubert. All right, and then maybe it'll work if I move this down to 10,000. And we'll see. We'll see if I get these in. Probably not. Probably didn't give myself quite enough time there. The starfish pick of Neil. I don't know what that means. It's very kind of you. Collective Gaming. Appreciate you. Love it. Jimmy cutting down trees in honor. All right, I'm going to put my last batch of lineups in case I can't get this next one done in time, which seems like a long shot. But you never know. Miracles do happen. Oh, I see. I did not know that that's what a starfish is. Okay, I see. Those are for super premium members. Jimmy says a sharp capper he knows likes Njigba under 84.5 yards. I mean, it's a high line. It's fair. That's funny. Only Flans. Calculating payouts. All right, this could happen. This could happen. DeMercado or Seattle defense to finish off a lineup. Most of the time, I would prefer Seattle defense, but it depends on the rest of your lineup. All right, diversifying payouts. We've got a real shot here, I think. You know, I like to get these lineups in last second. Shady advice, running the numbers in his head right now. There we go. All right. We're going to download 216 lineups. Every time you use the Shady Portfolio Optimizer, he puts his own lineups aside. He says, I got to run the numbers. All right. Got those lineups in. Let's take a look at the exposures. At quarterback, getting to a lot of Kyler, a little bit less of Sam Darnold. Now I'm up to 4% of captain. Just kept getting more Sam Darnold captain, which that's whatever. It's fine. Fine number. JSN, love it. Getting to a ton of JSN. Still getting to a lot of Cooper Kupp. I did bring up my Torrey Horton number, so glad to see that. Still getting to a lot of Dortch. Actually, really happy with this. So I'll probably lost some other players that I like here, but in general, very happy with my wide receiver exposures here. Running backs, fair number of Trey Benson. Okay with that Charbonnet exposure. I'm well over the field on Kenneth Walker, as I hope to be. DeMercado, 10%, so I'm just under the field. Only 1.5% Carter. In general, happy with those numbers. Tight end, we're at 39% and 12% McBride. Love that. Barner, 7.5%. Seems fine. 1.8% Arroyo. That is a pretty big risk. 1.8% Arroyo. Clearly, this flex ownership number is too high, but 19% Ryman, 7.6% Hagen. So my biggest fade, I think, is Elijah Arroyo. So that's scary, but it's fine. Kicker, 30%, 24% seems good. Defense, all right, still over the field on the defense. Pretty happy with the way the exposures came out tonight. I think those are close enough to where I would like them to be. All right. Yeah, always sprinting with the Sims. Appreciate all of you for hanging out. Again, I will be doing a giveaway for members tomorrow for 10 hats to randomly selected members once I figure out how to do that. There is a Sunday morning football game this week, so I do intend to do something for that, get some kind of content out, and then of course I'll be back live for Sunday Night Football as well. So we'll see you guys then. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Check out there's a free Discord, by the way, if you're not already signed up. The link is in the description if you're interested in checking it out. All right, thanks guys. See you later. Good luck tonight.